Hi, I'm Mike Rizzo.
And I'm Michelle Rizzo.
And this is Northwest Brew Talk. Welcome to Northwest Brew Talk, the number one podcast on Washington beer. This is episode number 62. Each and every week we promote the Washington brewing industry by talking to those people involved and drinking Washington beer. If you like to drink Washington beer, learn about it here on our show as we talk to the people behind it. With over 300 breweries, we try to highlight as many as possible every episode. If you're new to the show, we suggest you check our back catalog with some great interviews and lots of Washington beer. This week we have an interview with Outer Planet Brewing, our brew news, and local music from Wiscon.
If you have any comments or questions, feel free to send us an email to nwbrewtalk@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at nwbrewtalk and on Facebook at facebook.com/nwbrewtalk. If you like the show and want to support us, share our link and tell your friends on social media. It takes just a few to start a revolution. To start the show, let's open our first beer from Boundary Bay Brewing, located in Bellingham. Opened their doors in 1995, so they've been around for quite some time. They're family friendly, open 7 days a week. This beer was brewed in honor of the annual Bellingham St. Patrick's Day Parade. This Irish-style red ale is a smooth, easy-drinking, lighter-bodied ale with a deep red hue. It has a low hop bitterness and a toffee-like roasted, dry yet malty, clean finish. 4.6% ABV, 26 IBUs, and an untapped rating of 3.43.
Yeah, definitely a reddish color, rusty color to it.
Darker color there, yeah.
Yep. Got a nice white head on it, or not quite white since it's not that type of beer, but it's almost got like a spicy smell to it, aroma.
Yeah, it does. You can definitely smell those spices.
Yeah, something. It is a very clean beer, very smooth. The beginning, you get like a burst of flavor, and then it's smooth the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. There
isn't not much after that. You don't get a ton of flavor after that. It ends. It says it's a clean beer, and that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, one of those beers you can have a few of and enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. It's not overpowering in any way. It was low IBUs too. I mean low ABV, right?
Yep, 4.6. Yep. And actually on their website, I think it said 4% on their website.
Oh, so.
And I think Untapped and their website had two different things. Oh, so. Either Untapped said 4% and this said 4.6 on their website, or vice versa.
It's for something.
Sure, yeah, it's somewhere in that in that range.
Yeah, not a ton of hop flavor on it. Low IBUs.
Yeah, but it's a good beer.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty smooth. All right, and now onto our brew news.
Topping this week's news, do you love baseball and beer? The Seattle Mariners have a great lineup of local and craft beers at Safeco Field for the 2016 season. Expect to find beer from Mac and Jack's, Georgetown, Pike, Rubens Brews, Silver City, Schooner Exact, Two Beers, Bale Breaker, Black Raven, Diamond Knot, Fremont, Ghostfish, and Iron Horse scattered throughout the stadium. That is a lot of beer.
Sure is.
Very cool. If you like local but aren't picky about who owns them, there's Elysian, Pyramid, Red Hook, and Rainier, along with some Orkin breweries. It's definitely a huge change from years ago, although you can still find plenty of macro brews. North Jetty Brewing is celebrating their second anniversary on April 15th and 16th. The event takes place in their tap room with specials and fun. Top Rung Brewing in Lacey will be celebrating their second anniversary this Saturday, April 16th. They'll have some special beer releases, a special Randall South Bay food truck. For $7.50, you can get a 10-ounce pour and a special anniversary glass.
Windman Brewers will be celebrating its 5th anniversary in Tacoma on Saturday, April 23rd from noon to 11 in a warehouse just a few doors down from their tap room. There will be new beer releases, including Cool Hand Cuke Farmhouse Saison, Prop Wash IPA, 5th Anniversary Quintuple Hops Brewed IPA, and 2016 Big Baby Flat Top Bourbon Barrel Stout. $5 gets you in the door, a commemorative pint, glass, and your first pour. They recommend RSVPing on Facebook. While working on some marketing materials for our upcoming book, Washington Beer, this past weekend, I found a lot of breweries I didn't know had closed or opened or in the process of opening. There's a whole slew more of them. We've contacted most of them, and we'll be keeping you informed of their status as we continue to meet and interview brewers from across the state.
Wander Brewing in Bellingham is celebrating their second anniversary on Saturday, April 23rd. The 2016 Bourbon Barrel-Aged Emissary will be released at 1 p.m., and they will be tapping special kegs of beer from their cellar all day. Multiple food trucks on the patio, and live music starting at 5 p.m. Sounds like a great time.
Definitely.
The Washington Beer Collaboration Festival is coming up April 22nd to 23rd in Seattle. Altogether, 50 Washington breweries are teaming up to make 25 delicious collaborative brews, which will be released at this special event. Speaking of events, the Washington State Legislature and Governor Inslee recently passed a new law that will allow breweries the ability to make money at private events. Prior to this, a brewery could not hold a private tasting and sell beer. With the new special permit up to 12 per year, a brewery can now hold an event, and if the customer liked the beer, they could take some home right then. There are quite a few ways these could be used, and we look forward to seeing how Washington breweries take advantage of it.
You may have heard of pay-to-play. In the 1950s, they did it for music. It's been done for pharmaceuticals, technology, and, yes, beer. Forbes.com relates the story on how everything from money to sex has been used to get product placement in multiple products. In Washington, there's talk about rotating tap handles. Mike Hale of Hale's Ales told me he'd rather be in rotation at a bar than not. A brewery owner in Philadelphia said, sometimes, quote, sometimes you go into a bar and you'll see one distributor has 6 rotating draft lines and another has 2. You go in 6 months later and it's reversed. How do you police that? I don't know, but there's a new 50-inch flat screen on the wall, unquote. A craft beer distributor in Boston was caught paying money to sham companies set up by big bar chains and fined $2.6 million. Where it ends, no one is sure, but with the Federal Tax and Trade Bureau, or the TTB, overburdened and understaffed, we are likely to hear more of these pay-to-pour instances as the number of breweries continues to grow. And lastly this week, the original Olympia Brewery in Tumwater, which closed at the start of Prohibition in 1916 and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978, is being donated to the city of Tumwater by developer Falls Development, LLC, which asks that the historic building be remodeled and preserved. You can find more history about the brewery in the book Washington Beer, coming out next month. And that is the brew news for this week.
Welcome back to Northwest Brew Talk. If you want to submit news to Northwest Brew Talk, send us an email to nwbrewtalk@gmail.com. If you've not yet subscribed to our podcast, why not do it now? It's free, available anywhere you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio.
Okay, now we're going to talk to the guys who started Outer Planet Brewing in Seattle, James and Renato.
Okay, so I'm Jim Staccardo. I'm the head brewer and co-owner of Outer Planet Craft Brewing here in Capitol Hill. We formed the company in 2014. Spent many months building it out, and we officially opened for business a week ago, February, a year ago. Yeah, 1 year ago. So we're pretty excited. This is we're going into our second year now. I've brewed probably close to 100 batches of beer now on this system. I'm getting really comfortable with the operation, and I feel like I'm starting to come into my own now as far as being fluent with the equipment and having a lot of fun with the recipes. And we're gonna go ahead and try some of these recipes. A lot of them are actually new right now. I've got 8 of them here lined up for you. Starting with number 1, which is an American Pale Ale, dry hopped with Citra.
We'll try that.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a base malt of a US 2-row with a little bit of ESB for head retention, Crystal 60, and boiled with Magnum, Chinook, and Centennial, and then dry hopped with Citra and a little bit of Natham hops. I use pellets for the dry hop and whole leaf for the boiling addition.
Yeah, that's got a good flavor.
Yeah.
Now, I read you went to UC Davis.
I took some short classes there.
Short classes?
I did not take the extended certificate program. That was about a 3-year waiting list for that.
Oh, really?
We were hoping to be long have been in business by that point. So
Right.
so I opted for the short classes whenever I could get them. I was able to have the opportunity and the honor of studying with Charles Bamforth.
Okay.
Who's a legendary PhD professor within the brewing community. And I also took a yeast microbiology class there, which was very daunting. And then aside from that, I was a home brewer for 20 years before we ventured into this endeavor.
Right.
I've also been a bartender, bar manager for the last 30 years. So for me, opening a brewery was kind of a combining of my skill sets.
Right.
I mean, I was used to talking to the public and being behind a bar. I was very comfortable in this environment. I know how to get my hands dirty, and I'd also been a home brewer for a long time. And in the years leading up to opening, as I knew that we were going to do this, I started competing and was able to win a number of competitions.
Oh, great!
So I felt like I was in a place to take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty exciting.
Now, you didn't know Renato directly, right? You met.
Well, we actually have a third party, my older brother Michael, who introduced us. Mm-hmm. So Michael and Renato used to work together for years and years at Microsoft.
Okay.
They also formed a really solid friendship climbing Mount Rainier together, which Renato. How long ago was you guys summited Mount Rainier?
That was 2009.
2009, yeah. So they climbed Mount Rainier together in 2009, and Renato, during that time, Renato had been trying my homebrew beers, and had really become a fan of them. And he had wanted to open a brewery for a long time. So he sent me an email one day. He's like, "Hey Jim, I've been trying your beers. I really want to open a brewery. Let's talk."
Yeah.
And so I was on board immediately.
Yeah.
And we sat down, did some numbers on the back, on the back of a napkin, and put together basically a quick business plan.
Right.
And it was nonstop from there. We never looked back.
Right. So took you a while to get this place open.
Oh yeah, a solid 2.5, 3 years probably.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Did you do a lot of the work yourself?
We did as much as we could. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had neither one of us are builders, so we did have contractors come in and do most of the actual build out. I was heavily focused on staying at home and dialing in my recipes.
Okay.
And taking classes and whatnot and reading up as much as I could. So I could have probably saved more money by doing the construction myself, but I felt like in the long run it was going to pay off more if I stayed focused on the recipes.
Right.
And that's the path we ended up taking. So it was a raw space when we moved in here.
Okay, right.
It was a brand new building. There was just 4 empty walls with a bunch of stubs for electrical and plumbing.
Right.
Yeah,
So
would
it
you
was
say we spent the month of December here, and then half of the month of December, and then half of the month January, then things started finally tapering off.
Yeah.
It was just kind of waiting for the final approvals, inspections, and
as
follow-ups from the inspections.
As any brewery in planning or any brewery that's been out there will tell you, it's pretty intense trying to put a brewery together because every single step of the way is a stumbling block when it comes to the federal government, the local government, inspectors. They're gonna half of what they inspect. They're gonna say it's not up to code yet. Mm-hmm. You got to go back and go through the whole process again. Have the contractor come in and work something out. Then lights go out or something like that. Then you realize you don't have enough ampage for the building, and you got to get that redone. The giant hole in the ceiling we had to get filled because there used to be a staircase going to the second floor. With solid concrete. It was a big operation. So a lot of things to deal with. Yeah.
So you have a 3-barrel system?
We have a 3-barrel for the hot side, and we have 2 6-barrel fermenters.
Okay.
So we brew twice. It's about a 12-hour day.
Okay. How many days you brewing?
At any given time, I have 8 different beers on tap. Right now, I've got my double IPA and my IPA in the fermenters. I'm cold crashing them right now, and they'll be on tap next week. After that, I'll be brewing an ESB and then another batch of IPA. We always have one batch of IPA in one of those fermenters because it just sells that fast.
Yeah.
So one of
It's
them
our
always,
biggest seller by far.
Yeah.
About
IPA.
50% of what we sell here is IPA.
and then
Wow.
I'm doing a smaller batch right now. It's actually cold crashing in the walk-in of a German Goes. That'll be our first sour beer of the season, which I'll be having sour beers all summer long.
Okay.
First sour beer of ever.
Well, remember that stout we did last year? It was we had
The sour mash. Yeah.
Yeah, we
that
had
wasn't a true sour.
Well, it was a true sour, but it was an accidental sour.
we built
yeah.
a bunch of lactates on it, and,
Yeah,
and that's how it turned sour.
Yeah, so
we almost tossed that beer 5 times until we're like, every time one of us would taste it and say, we should toss it, and the other one was like, well, let's wait. Until the final one was like, he gave it to me, and was like, what do you think? I tasted it, and I was like, let's just toss it. It's like, well, let's wait till we carbonate it and get it cold. It's like, sure, but we have a very high bar here. If we don't like the beer, it's down the drain. Right?
Yeah.
We're not serving it.
Yeah.
And then when we cold crashed it and carbonated it and got it cold and it tasted good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay,
yeah,
so we were so worried about it when we had our regular customers come in. It's like, try this, see what you think. People were just raving about it.
It ended up being one of our most popular beers last year.
Really?
Sold out in no time.
So yeah, this the German Goes that I'm working on right now. It's actually going to be a split batch. It's a 2-barrel batch. Half is going to be a classic German Goes, finishing out about 4% alcohol. The other barrel will be a black cherry Goes.
Nice.
And I'm pretty excited about that. It should be ready in about 2 weeks. And it's a kettle soured beer. Took several days for the pH to get down where I wanted it. But I used an organic Greek yogurt culture for the starter, which gives a nice complexity. It's a relatively new technique that's gotten more popular. A lot of bigger breweries are doing it now. So pretty excited about it. It opens a lot of possibilities for us.
So you're bringing yourself up to the bigger brewery standards now, huh?
Well, I would like to think we've always been there, but we're
one of the things we wanted to make sure when we were opening this brewery is that we had the right equipment to do it. Because we did extensive research, quote unquote. So that means we basically hit every single brewery in town and checked out their systems and became friends with the owners.
Sure.
Most of them are friendly and would just talk to us, welcome us, and all that. So, and we saw the shortcomings were when they didn't have the right equipment. The person's a good brewer, but because they're working substandard equipment without temperature control, most of all, then the quality of the beer was suffering, and we didn't want to have that happen. So we invested in the equipment from the get-go instead of starting with subpar equipment without not using jacketed fermenters with glycol and things like that. It wasn't something that we were going to do.
Right. All right. What do we got next here?
Okay, next up is a saison. It's the Forbidden Fruit saison. This is kind of an interesting play on the style. I use the Y yeast 3711 French strain as the main workhorse for that beer, and I also added a good amount of Forbidden Fruit yeast, which is Belgian yeast, typically used for wits, Grand Crus, things like that. That gives it a nice fruity, almost citrusy quality. So that one's been well received. I'm pretty excited about that one as well. That's a blend. That's a 50-50 blend of German Pilsner and Belgian wheat malt, golden hops.
So you like to work with a lot of different yeast and hops and
I really like playing around with yeast, hops, malt, of course.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So is this? So when you're working on a recipe like this, did you have something in mind, or was it kind of like partial experiment?
This is an evolution on a beer that I won first place at the X-Brew competition in 2014. It started life off as a rye saison based on the 3711 strain, and at that point it was a rye pilsner blend. Other than that, it was basically the same as this one in terms of the malt bill, except that I was using rye instead of wheat.
Okay.
And I've been kind of playing with that same basic recipe and doing versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the recipe that I brewed most of the time last year was called Utopia Planitia, which is pretty highly rated on Untappd.
Okay.
So,
you've been open for a year. How often have you tweaked your recipes?
Well, the basic recipes, the ESB, the IPA. Another one, the Bohemian, which I just blew last night. I wish I had it on tap, but it's basically our lager style beer. It's pretty straight up continental style lager. That one, the ESB, the IPA, the Ghost of Jupiter, my oatmeal stout, the Imperial stout that you're about to have. Those haven't really changed very much.
Oh, really?
I've been pretty happy with them, especially I'd say if any of them, especially the ESB, that one's a rock solid recipe, not changing at all. Certain ones like the IPA, because I spot by my hops, I have to sometimes mix and match the hops a little bit. Things not always available, especially going into September, October through the end of the year. Some things like this year, I couldn't get Simcoe at all the last couple of months for my dry hopping, so I had to really take that into consideration when I was working my hop bill. Other than that, the IPA recipe is pretty unchanging. I'm still tweaking it a little bit. Like this latest batch that you have in front of you, I used ESB for the base malt instead of US 2-row. I'm really starting to like ESB for beers beyond the ESB, the base malt, mostly because it has a nice bready quality to it, and it also has really excellent head retention.
Okay. All right. What do we have next here?
Okay, so this one here is a brown ale. It's a slightly maltier, richer take on like a northern English brown. It has a decent amount of roast malt in there. ESB is the base malt. Willamette is the hop that I use, as well as Kent Gold, and a little bit of chalk for the water. Other than that, it's pretty simple water chemistry. I'm trying to think what else is in there. A Crystal 120 and also a little bit of roast barley and a touch of chocolate malt.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got a good flavor to it.
Yeah.
So do you do some water treatment?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For the IPA, it's straight gypsum. We filter the water, Seattle water, filter it, get rid of the chlorine and whatnot, and then for the IPA, it's straight gypsum. For my ESB, I blend my own Burton salt. I use Beersmith for the software, and then I mix all the minerals on my own. Let me see. For the darker beers, I usually do like a excuse me, a Dublin water profile. It's kind of standard for my dark beers.
Okay. All right. This one's good.
The next one up is a Belgian dark strong, a little bit darker than what a BJCP guideline would suggest. But other than that, it's a pretty straight up Belgian strong malt bill. I use Cara 3 for the black malt. There's no roast malts, of course, in that. It's just debittered malts. And let me see. I believe it was US 2-row for the base malt on that one. Made that back in December. It's been that's actually the end of the line on that one. I've got a few pints left. So I was really kind of hoping you guys would get it before it ran out.
Nice.
Yeah. Let me see. I use the Belgian Ardennes yeast for that one, which you usually use for you see that in Trappist ales and whatnot.
So, are there any styles that you haven't done yet that you're interested in pursuing?
I want to play more around with sour beers. I'm really curious about blending some recipes this summer with sour beers, as well as some fruit sours, different yeast strains with kettle sour beers. That's kind of the direction I want to head and focus on this summer, along with farmhouse beers. I've come up with a technique for doing hot temperature fermentations for my like the Saison DuPont strains and whatnot. you basically using my boil kettle as a fermentation unit, sealing it, and then wrapping it in a heat blanket and setting it for 90 plus degrees for the fermentation. I've had trouble in here before trying to do farmhouse beers because I wasn't able to maintain a high enough temperature. But I finally figured out that if I freed up my boil kettle for a week, wrapped a heat blanket around it, put a Johnson controller with a temperature probe, then I could actually control the heat in there. And so that's actually my next big experiment. I feel like it's going to produce a much spicier farmhouse beer than I've produced in the past, so I'm really excited about that. And that's the recipe that I'm geeking out on right now.
Yeah.
And then the next immediate recipe I'm doing this coming week is an American blonde. I'm doing that with springtime in mind.
Sure.
So
when you get somebody coming in, they're not normally a craft beer drinker. What do you point them to? How do you
So if I just know that they're not going to want to be out of their comfort zone, I usually point them towards a Bohemian or a blonde ale, something like that. I mean, it's easy drinking. Anybody that likes a domestic beer will like that. Domestic macro beer. If I feel like they want to go outside of their bounds a bit, I'll introduce them to an ESB with a brown ale. A lot of times people will come in, they'll ask me for a Hefeweizen. I'll immediately point them towards a Saison. They almost always like it.
Okay.
And usually there's a little wheat or rye in there too, so it works out pretty well.
You like that one, huh? All right, what do we have next here?
Okay, so this is one of my personal favorites. This is a beer that you'll never not see on tap here because I personally this is my go-to beer at the end of the night. It's an ESB extra special bitter. It's a fairly classic interpretation of the style, with the exception that I bump the alcohol up a little bit for the American palate. A lot of English people come in and they say it reminds them of home. I think that is a very high compliment. So. Again, that's Burton Trent water profile, 100% ESB for the base malt, Crystal 20 plus 120 for the color, and then I mash in around 152 on that. I use English yeast, and usually I'll use either Willamette gold hops, something like that for the hop addition. And contrary to what people think when they hear the word bitter, it's not that bitter of a beer. It's more. No. It's really more about the malt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, it's got different flavor to it.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah.
That's the only one I grabbed the other day.
So what? Other than obviously the permitting and all that to get open, what was probably one of the biggest obstacles you've had since you've opened?
The single biggest obstacle was probably I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't go into detail. Was removing a staircase.
Okay.
So every build out is its own epic, story, but for at least for the people that built it out, and this was no exception. So for the staircase, this was originally supposed to be 2 live-work spaces.
Okay.
And the zoning requirements in Seattle for a live-work space inside of a modern building like this, they have to have interior access to the interior of the building, which involved a staircase that went through the ceiling, through the concrete ceiling above us. Well, we didn't need that, so we had a change of use permit put in with the city, and we had to have the staircase removed. Just removing the staircase was a big project that involved the dumpster and everything. But then beyond that, to get this space up to fire code, we actually had to fill in a 10 by 10 hole with concrete, which involved having an engineer, rebar drilled into the adjacent concrete,
right,
and then basically a form built, and then they had to actually go in through the top of the building and pour concrete through a tube. It was a big project. Fortunately for us, the landlord picked up the tab on that, that was his responsibility. But it did delay things by probably a month or more. Children, yes. Anyway, So that probably delayed things by a month and a half at least.
Yeah.
And the thing that made that frustrating is we couldn't do anything until that happened. We couldn't do electrical, we couldn't do plumbing, we couldn't even paint or anything like that. So the whole project waited for quite a while. Meanwhile, our original opening date slated for October 2014 was ticking loudly, and that came to pass. And then one little thing after another, waiting for this permit or that. And each time you wait for a permit, not much else can happen until that inspection process or whatever, or that approval goes through. So, but aside from the staircase, it was just a series of small things that ended up in a long-term building process. But I've talked to other people around here that have had much more epic build-outs than we have in terms of having to wait and have delays and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what do we have here?
Okay, so that's our house IPA. I just tapped that one this morning. This particular one is actually a new experiment. I'm using ESP for the base malt on that one, and then Crystal 20 and Crystal 40 for the crystal malts. I only use about 5% crystal malt for my IPA. And actually, for any of my beers, I usually don't use more than 5% of crystal malts because I feel like it can make a beer cloying very quickly. So I'm very, very cautious about how much I use. Magnum for the main bittering condition with a little bit of Chinook. Then at the final 20 minutes, I use more Chinook, Centennial, Citra, typically Simcoe, but this one I didn't have Simcoe, so I bumped up the other ones a little bit more. And then for the dry hopping, I go pretty crazy. I add at least 10 pounds for 6 barrels of dry hops. And with this one, it was Citra, Centennial, Chinook, Citra, Centennial, Citra, Centennial, Chinook, and what other? Oh, and Anathema, yes.
So does it always have the same flavor, or does it sometimes vary a little bit?
It can vary slightly because of the hops, but I try to keep the flavor as consistent from one batch to the next as possible. But without having a contract on hops, sometimes you have to really push the envelope as far as tweaking the mix of hops. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure it's a fairly consistent overlapping flavor profile, but it does vary a little bit sometimes, which is fine with me because it gives me a little bit of the experiment. Right.
So, have you guys done competitions since you opened?
We did not do competitions our first year. Honestly, our first year was
just getting going. Right?
Just getting going. Just trying to keep our heads on straight and keep up with the really massive learning curve of owning and operating a brewery. This year is different. I actually just got my bottling equipment here, and I'm going to be submitting beers for the Washington Brewers competition coming up I think it's in May, and I'm hoping to have a good 10 beers for that one.
Oh, okay, great.
So this year I'll start doing competitions. I'm really excited about that. Last year we agreed right from the get-go. It's like okay, not going to happen this year. We'll just focus on running the brewery and make sure we're making good beer for the neighborhood.
So do a lot of your beers you like to brew them to style?
I like to stick to style. I'm actually a BJCP judge. I got certified earlier last year along with my brother Michael, and we actually studied with Steve Anatok, who's a third level Grand National beer judge. Very, very competent beer judge, and he was a hoot to study with, but. Especially having been certified as a beer judge, I really do like to stick to style. That said, I'm also selling beer to the general public, so I do have to bend the laws a little bit in that regard. Like the ESP is a good example. Mm-hmm. It's within style, but it's on the high side of the style. Right.
So going to that, you're selling to the general public. I mean, that's who's buying your beer. Now, are you brewing beer that you like, or are you brewing beer that
yes, I brew beer that I like. I mean, one beer you're not going to see here is a milk stout. Okay. Why? I can't drink milk.
Okay.
I'm not gonna brew something I can't drink. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your next one here?
Okay. So this is the Imperial Oatmeal Stout.
Okay.
It's US 2 row, US 05 for the yeast. It's got a little bit of crystal malt, a lot of roast barley. It's got a good amount of chocolate malt, and that's pretty much it for the grain bill. Oh, with oatmeal, of course.
Yes.
There's a good amount of oatmeal in there as well. Restrain on the hops. I think I used a little bit of Magnum and Chinook for the hop addition, but that was about it. Not enough to make it obvious, but just enough to firm up the bitterness. And then I aged it for a couple of weeks with whiskey soaked oak chips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, being a 1,300 square foot brewery, this is a very small brewery. I don't have room for barrels, so I have to be creative when it comes to the wood. So I've always got oak chips that I'm aging with whiskey, or the last version is I done with sherry soaked oak chips, which was really, really tasty.
Yeah. That's good. You like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. She likes her stouts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and last but not least here, the Ghost of Jupiter. This is our one of our new, I would like to almost think of it as a new flagship beer that we're doing. It was a beer that started life off this past September as our wet hop harvest ale.
Okay.
So Renato's buddy Jeff, he had some Liberty and Cascade hops growing in his backyard, and he invited us over to come clean out his hop vines. And we ended up filling a couple trash bags of that and brewing up a big batch of harvest ale.
Nice.
And it ended up being so popular, I decided to reconfigure the recipe very slightly to make it into our double IPA. And it was called Ghost of Jupiter from day one. It was just hugely popular. And so I kept everything identical, except that I'm using dry leaf Liberty and Cascade instead of the wet leaf. Other than that, it's the same beer. I increased the alcohol slightly by about 0.5% so that it would qualify as a double IPA. That one's one thing that makes that a little bit different is I use English yeast for that one instead of West Coast yeast.
Oh, okay.
So if it tastes like it's a fruitier IPA, that's intentional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're using fresh hops, do they have to be cleaned? I mean, do they have to be rinsed, or what? You just toss them in?
No, I mean you don't want to be picking hops off the ground.
Right.
But I mean the thing is they're going into the boil kettle,
right?
And they're getting a good solid boil. So I'm not worried about any bacteria like that. I mean, normally there's a very mild killing process that happens with hops, but with a wet hop you're literally driving back from the vineyard or the vine, wherever the vines are, as quick as you can, and then just chucking them into the boil kettle.
Right.
The sooner the better. But they're getting boiled, so there's no worry about that. You hope you're not chucking a grasshopper in, but I mean, and that's
maybe it's strained out, right?
The wise ones jump off. Yeah.
So, do you guys distribute your beer at all?
We do a little bit of distribution, yeah. We have a number of accounts in the neighborhood, bars and restaurants, but we're not doing a lot of distribution right now. I mean, as you can looking around, you can see it's a very, very small operation.
And is this how you want it to stay? Just a little neighborhood operation?
Oh, for right now, yeah. We're pretty happy. I mean, from the get-go, before we'd even found a location, we decided that we wanted any kind of growth that we have to be organic, and that's never changed.
Okay.
I'm pretty happy at the size we are right now. I do want to get more fermenters.
Okay.
I do want to get more equipment to tweak out the space we're in, but we have a lot of growth yet to do within the neighborhood here. A lot of people don't even know we're here. Being that we're on a quieter street, not in the main part of the neighborhood as far as the Pike Pine Quarter. We're definitely off the beaten path. So the word of mouth thing is what we're focusing on right now. We have our Wednesday night trivia night that we're promoting. That's drawing a nice crowd. I'm also looking for somebody that wants to host an open mic night for music and whatnot. That's another thing I'd like to do on the weekends, and I think that could be a lot of fun. But yeah, for right now, the neighborhood distribution is always going to be limited until we expand.
Right.
We're never going to be able to do more than 15 or 20 accounts at a time, and I'm okay with that. Because I am the delivery guy right now, and my Kia only holds so many kegs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it. We tried a lot of beers here, and Got a nice little location, family friendly.
Super.
And dog friendly too. So
dog friendly, kid friendly. Yeah, bring them in.
So.
Yeah, we have a water bowl. We have biscuits. We have toys for the kids.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right, I'd like to thank James and Renato from Outer Planet in Seattle for joining us today. They've got a nice little place.
Very nice.
Good beer, and it's family friendly. We will be right back after a music break from the band Wiscon.
That was Another Night from Wiscon. You can check them out at wiscon.bandcamp.com. If you want to have your music played on Northwest Brew Talk, contact us today. And now for our second beer, we've got one from Northwest Brewing Company, located in Pacific. They're open 7 days a week. And we are drinking their Bad Panda, a ginger pale ale.
And there is ginger in there.
Oh, yeah, right as you open it, huh? Oh. This lushly flavored ale is brewed with ginger, galanga, and premium Pacific Northwest malts. Pilled together with nugget hops and their house ale yeast, this beer is a perfect accompaniment to any Asian Pacific cuisine. 5% ABV, 15 IBUs, and a rating on Untappd of 3.45.
Definitely. As soon as I open that, you can smell ginger.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's crazy. That has a a ginger spice and whatever else they've got in there. You gotta like ginger.
Yeah, I'm not a huge ginger fan.
It's like drinking some of the stuff, the darker things that I'm not a big fan of. But this is not bad. It's kind of like I bet it would be great with some Chinese food.
Absolutely.
Seriously,
some sushi. Yeah, that sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it probably would be just the flavor.
Yeah, that's makes me think of sushi right away.
Yeah, no, but you're right. Looking, cleaning your palate in between. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a different flavor.
Yeah, it is different. I can't say I've had it before.
I don't hate it. It's something.
It's always a good way to have a beer. Not hating it.
Well, yeah, but it's definitely something that we haven't haven't tried before. And it says close your eyes and let the captivating flavors transport you. And it's called Bad Panda. So I don't know if I'd want to transport myself to that place where you've got a bad panda. I mean, they always look, so cute, and then you want a bad one.
I don't know. That one doesn't look so cute.
I know. You want him attacking you in your dreams. No, ginger pale ale. Not bad.
It's definitely light, like a pale ale, obviously, but
yeah, and it would probably taste awesome with some sushi.
Yeah, I agree.
Why don't you give me fresh beer?
You serious?
This week's fresh beer is now on tap at Ghostfish Brewing Company, Kai Dog Red IPA. Anyone who's been to their taproom has probably met Kai, Randy's friendly golden retriever and unofficial Ghostfish mascot. This spring seasonal pays tribute to him, a brilliant red body with a playful malt personality, greeting you with a friendly hop-forward bark. And of course, this beer is 100% gluten-free, 4.5% ABV, 50 IBUs, and an untapped rating of 3.8.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of this episode of Northwest Brew Talk.
Make sure you tune in next week when we chat with Wander Brewing.
This show is written and produced by Michelle Rizzo and myself.
If you want to contact us, you can email us at nwbrewtalk@gmail.com or on Twitter at nwbrewtalk. Our theme music is from Gilbert Neal at gilbertneal.com.
Oh, and he's got a new album coming out this summer. We're going to let you know about that.
Very exciting.
And until next time, I am Mike Rizzo.
And I'm Michelle Rizzo.
Stay hopping, my friends.
The 2016 Burble